Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 5 of EDU 133. This week, we're going to be discussing numeracy, literacy, and teaching math. But the purpose of this video specifically is to go over several different curriculums that I have used, and I thought it'd be valuable to plug in at some point in this course. We're going to continue in the context of the topic of the week, numeracy and mathematics education. We're going to continue to approach it from standards and competencies from the college and career readiness standards, because those standards still frame all of the existing curriculums, and you can leverage them in your lesson planning as you have with your CTE to create an interactive, excellent learning experience. But I felt, this course doesn't really cover the actual content beyond the standards. So I wanted to give you some insight into that and kind of recommend that you pick up some of these things that I cover or look into Minnesota Literacy Council's free resources and begin to build your understanding of all of the topics and materials. You need to be a master's. You need to be excellent. You need to have excellence and mastery of these topics to a degree to teach them. What I'm going to show you, I'll talk through a bunch of curriculums that I have used for well over 7 years now and still use, some even older. Some of the resources and curriculums and textbooks and practice worksheets and things like that I'll show you in this video are much older than 7 years. They just work. They work really well. So I'm going to share that with you now. So I'm sorry about the page here. It actually says the ABE-ASE subject matter and curriculums, Nicholas Parez, EDU 133. All the flyovers kind of break it up, but I'm going to show you some example materials and curriculums and associate them well with levels, but also some of these, especially the Score Boost for TABE and the GED skills books, those are good pre-existing curriculums that if I identify a student's inability in a certain literacy, I can use at any level. So sometimes you'll have students who understand the topic and the subject matter to a crazy high degree, but they can't write very well. They know all about biology. They know all about STEM. They know all about geometry, but they can't write a paper worth anything. So that's where some of these other ones and some of these things these curriculums play in and out of grade level equivalence. So we'll start out with the early curriculums, ABE. The grade GLE is grade level equivalency of 1 to 4. And I'll show you 2 different curriculums, and I'll also talk about when to use those in and outside of adult basic ed, or the grade level equivalence of 1 to 4. Then we'll talk about some McGraw-Hill materials called Common Core. The reference Common Core comes from this set of curriculum being developed simultaneously with the Common Core state standards and the college and career readiness standards. And these 2 sets, there are 5 books in each of these. This basics is really a 6 through 8 grade level equivalency, but I started introducing this material probably closer to grade level equivalent of 4. It's low enough. And then the other one is the Common Core Achieve, which is very much the ASE space of grade level 9 through 12. And then we'll talk about the value of test prep and the Kaplan GED test prep book and the limitations of all of these as well. So let's first start out with that early ABE GLE 1 through 4 materials. There are these Score Boost books out there. There are probably about 10 to 12 of these books. They cover very specific topics and literacies. So if people can't write, you'll notice the one I have on over here is Writing Across the Tests. That is a book that covers good writing practices regardless of the subject matter they're talking about or that they're working on. So if you're seeing a student who just isn't writing well, and that's also something you need to unpack further, because is it writing well, or is it their ability to critically think at high levels, or often referred to as higher order thinking? So unpacking that a bit further, using your skills and your intuitions, to figure out what score boost you want them to work through. These types of materials work really well in a multi-leveled classroom when you don't have all beginners, and many adult ed programs are set up like this. So these books become like your saving grace, because you're able to have like these 3 students who need help with thinking skills, this student who needs higher order thinking skill help, these students who need writing across the tests, these couple of students are working on math, maybe out of a different book. These score boost books are probably no more than 20 or 30 or 40 pages and really focus on one literacy or chunk of subject matter. Mathematics, within the score boost mathematics, there's a book on geometry, there's a book on algebra, there's a book on lower level, fractions. There's a book on, so these books cover lots of different little subject matter areas and have like direct instruction, explanation, examples, then lots of practice. So these books are great at reinforcing or introducing and working across, and are really excellent trying to get students from like a pre-literate where they're just learned to write to a grade level like 4. And moving into maybe more of like that ABE, the Common Core Basics, Common Core Achieve space. So that's Score Boost. I would suggest getting your hands on 1 or 2 of these, testing them out. Almost every adult ed program has these in spades. They have every version of them, and usually they'll buy them for you. So I have a full set of all of these. If this class was in person, I would have brought them all and we would have evaluated and investigated them a bit further and stuff. But definitely a good pickup if you intend to teach for a while. All these materials I'm going to present to you, I have written off on my taxes. And at the same time, I have different employers like Learning Source or family literacy programs will buy or give you these things for you, or already have them in stock. Another really good set of books that really helps get learners from that like grade level, they're pre-illiterate, they're just learning to write and read, use pencils, read things in general, because they may have not been doing that in their L1 or wherever they're coming from, to like a grade level of a 4 or 5, or 3 to 5, is the skills book for GED. This is another great little simple series from Steck Vaughn. So if you're searching for it, Steck Vaughn GED, pre-GED skills book. Mathematics, this one is focused on geometry. This is very similar to the Score Boost, that it's very topic focused and not necessarily the subject matter. It's broken down a level lower than the subject matter is how I should put it. So this one would focus on geometry. You can see that these books range in about 40 to 60 pages. And this one's all about higher order thinking skills. This one's all about language arts and writing, the essay. They're very specific. And there's probably, again, 10 to 20 of these covering different topics within the subject matter, and literacies as well, like information literacy, measuring and critical thinking, measuring the value of the merit of a source of information. Is what I'm getting at when I say information literacy. But there's a good series out there. I would suggest picking up 1 or 2 and checking them out. These are good go-to materials, especially if you have that multi-level again, and helping people to get to that level 4, where it's a lot more guidance on your end. And then once they have a good sense of their own study behavior and learning abilities, they can begin to move through the curriculums that I will present next. So the next one I'm going to show you is Common Core Basics. It's a 5-book series, one on reading, one on social studies, mathematics, science, and writing. These books will, at the beginning of every chapter, will have the standards that you all are looking at and reading and applying in these lesson plans, like outlined at the very first page of the chapter. And every lesson touches on and builds towards these. So this one are low level. They're preparing students for the ASE space. These are very much the grade level 4 through 8, and are these textbooks are far more refined, is how I should put it, and intentional. And so you would have to do a little bit more work on your end of preparing additional supplemental lessons and activities, because they're pretty well encapsulated. They are good overall. You can have students just read about a topic in them and then forget it, not do the activities, and you have your own activities and things like that, or apply some of it. But these would fit really well into your current CTE lesson plans that all of you are doing. So this is 6 through 8. It's a great series. I would suggest picking them up and reading through them yourself, and then also just being prepared to make copies of these for students. I usually just scan the entire series and then give my students what they need, unless they need to buy, or the adult ed program you're teaching in requires that they buy it. The next one is Common Core Achieve. We're getting closer to the end. We're teaching geometry, we're teaching algebra, we're teaching critical thinking and essential skill readiness of things. This is also a 5-part series. I don't have the other one up here, or maybe it's a 4-part series. I'm forgetting, because this one captures reading and writing, whereas the other one has writing and reading separate. Yeah, so this might be a 4-part series. Very much test prep, and the topics are very high level in grade level equivalency. Also a great series, very encapsulated. So I've used this series. Everything I'm showing you I've used successfully with hundreds and hundreds of GED graduates and people working towards ABE, ASE over the years. I've had lots of success with these. I'm not recommending anything I haven't had success with. These aren't always the perfect thing. I often end up doing lesson planning, much like all of you are doing. You can do a better job because you understand your learner as individuals better, or your classroom scenario is a certain way. You don't have a scanner, and you have to just go different directions. I've done that as well. But these are good sources, and I would highly recommend them. And then finally, the final thing I would mention is, if you have those learners who are coming to you and are pretty much right on the cusp of passing tests, like they're scoring on the tape in the 12, 11, and 12, I would push them to buy a Kaplan GED test prep book. This will be the biggest bang for their buck. At that grade level, they have seen how to successfully learn, and by saying that, I mean they are aware of their learning behaviors. They know how to take notes that work for them, that they've seen success with other tests on, and they know how to study on their own. Your job just becomes clarification. They come to you and they're like, I really don't get measuring angles. Well, you then explain and provide activities and other inputs for them, different materials for them to navigate that space a little bit better, easier. So I would recommend this to anyone who's teaching those high-level learners who are really just right on the cusp of passing a test, but they haven't done it yet. Usually that becomes more of like confidence building in them and refining through different materials. So those are the materials that I've used. I would suggest picking up copies of these if you have the money, or asking your adult ed program you work for to get you copies of these. They're really good as far as early on literacy things, and also getting students up to that like grade level 4 or 5 where you can begin to use a more comprehensive curriculum like Common Core Basics. So I would say pick these up and check them out. Also, I mentioned an online resource called the Minnesota Literacy Council. I would highly recommend doing a Google search using that phrase, and then subject matter or ABE. They have all of their materials and lessons online, and they're really good. The state of Minnesota has adult ed funding at the state level, state tax dollars going into that program. So their materials are really nice. So check it out. Look into these, grab one or two, get a sense for it. That's something we don't quite address in the scope of this course. It's kind of difficult to fit in testing you on your understanding of math. Whereas I really want to just make sure that you know how to use outcomes to craft an effective lesson plan on certain mathematical topics, and then have you be able to judge materials and resources available that would best help your students. We don't always need to reinvent the wheel. So, all right, take care. I'll see you in the discussions.